share in either wisdom, story, or logic. And it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people unique to their own journeys and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and store of others.
Welcome everybody here back to the Missing Link. Today we're excited to have back for a second time a writer, ghostwriter, teacher, and lecturer who researches and writes on deep state issues like geoengineering, MK Ultra, ritual abuse, HARP, targeting, and invasive electromagnetic weapons. Welcome back to the Missing Link Live, Elana Freeland. How are you doing today, sister?
Hi, Jesse. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you again. You're most welcome. Why don't you start off with telling us about yourself and your journey, a little bit about your background, your education, what part of the world you grew up in, what part of the world you're in now, if you like disclosing that information, what got you into writing and knowing about the deep state and HARP and all these other things, anything that you wanted to share about your journey with our audience here today, especially if they may be hearing you here for the first time.
Okay, so, gosh, that's a long time ago. I have the advantage, at least I consider it an advantage, to being older, where I have been through so much in this life. This time we are living in is so rich in the good versus evil theme that I just feel so privileged to be here for this tremendous shift that's going on now. But when I started out, I was born in the very year that the national security state was born. I was born in the year that the CIA was born. Of course, I knew nothing about these things. I was living in an Eastern European immigrant neighborhood, 5 square blocks in Detroit, Michigan, where everyone was either working for the car industry for Ford and General Motors, or they were retired from there and getting their retirement. So I would hear 5 or 6 languages a day. And I wasn't an immigrant, but I was very impacted by my experience in going to public school. I had private lessons as well. I had long hair that was always braided so tightly by my grandmother that sometimes I would get tears in my eyes from the braiding. But I was so happy in that neighborhood because it was real. It was not locked up in preconceptions. Everybody had their own culture and spoke similar languages. In Europe, you know, Europeans speak several languages, unlike Americans. And so that was where I began. And I didn't know at that point that I would be living such an internationally conscious life. To start out as an international kid, in the sense that, you know, I spoke Romanian before English, and etc. You look at things very differently than, like, say, a middle class kid in a suburban neighborhood, and it has really suited my life that I began there. I left the neighborhood when I was about 9 and moved to New York, lived in the city, lived in Forest Hills out on Long Island, always aware of how different America was from my neighborhood. And that was when Truman was president. And we had the post-war wealth that Even though we were certainly poor and had to work very hard for a living, it was it was a time when we felt good about America. We believed in America. Certainly, immigrants did, because they had all escaped from the Soviet Union's takeover of Eastern Europe at the end of World War II. So it was like America was this dream, and I when I got into it and began to, I was still very shy. I was very introverted. I read a lot, and I had friends, but because I moved around so much, because my parents were divorced, I didn't get attached very easily to people. So I ended up being, like I am now, an intellectual, really, who dives into things to find out how they work. And that's kind of how I got involved in writing about geoengineering. I certainly didn't start out thinking, oh, wow, I really want to write books on geoengineering. I didn't even know it existed. So for me, the change that happened about 15 years ago was all due to the scientist Clifford Carnicom, whom I met at a breakfast in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where both of us were living. He and his wife were living on the edge of town. I was living closer in. And he and I began talking about some of the things he was collecting because of these jets flying, usually at a high altitude, 35, 37,000 feet. And he was concerned by several things. One, the atmosphere was being changed. He had already measured it, measured it, measured it, and was concerned that it was not the same as it used to be. And he was collecting the detritus that was coming down from the backs of the jets. Everybody thought they were contrails, which we were used to, but these were not contrails. These were chemtrails, chemical trails. They had chemical signatures. Then having studied chemistry in college, and then he had worked for the Department of Defense as someone looking at the environment. So I got very involved with his work, especially he was finding these fibrous entities coming down from the sky. They were very short fibers, dark black, and he had a hard time breaking into them. In order to see what was in there, he had to use chemical substances in order to crack that it turned out to be a polymer sheath on the outside. And then that was when he discovered the so-called Morgellons that people knew that term about 10 years ago, and there are a lot of people who suffer from it even now. Because you breathe these things in, they're very tiny, and you're not aware that you're breathing them in, but they are falling from the sky and they're in the atmosphere. So that was really the beginning when I watched that Morgellons entity, which isn't, Morgellons is a really CIA name for it. It's not at all accurate, but I could see them sucking the iron out of my erythrocytes and my red blood cells. So that's what got me going was, wow, if this is happening in the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is that huge bubble that we all breathe from. It's not like you have an American atmosphere and then you have a French atmosphere, et cetera. No, it's one atmosphere, and there are many winds that are moving it this way and that. And I knew very little at that time about the entire geoengineering system. I just knew little bits and pieces of it. So that was when I began, and that was 15 years ago. And I wrote the first book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth in 2014. That was published by Feral House. And then I wrote Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. That was published by Feral House. And then I began to return to the Morgellons and the biologicals that were coming down. We had heard rumors of, for example, bloody tissue coming down from the sky. That was definitely mammal. And various things that were going into our bodies. And then the skin was trying to get them out. And that was became very prevalent, where people were having sores on their bodies and scaly stuff coming off. So it it became an obsession for me to figure out what was going on, because I realized that if they were dropping these things and we were breathing them in or eating them from our food base, that would be the GMO food fields and organic fields. We were drinking them because of the water table and the rain that was coming down. People were capturing rain. So I realized that this looked like transhumanism. This looked like that our species was being undermined. People were getting sicker. American health has never been as bad as it is now, because even children are having terrible difficulties that just barely hear. That was the beginning of the synthetic biology phase, when I began to realize that the geoengineering was being used purposefully in order to undermine Homo sapiens humanity. Our immune system was weaker than it had ever been, because of all the, remember, we used to complain about the pollution 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And that pollution was part of this whole approach to the environment, to use it. We now have the term epigenetics. The environment was being used epigenetically in order to undermine our immune system and change the earth itself. So that was kind of the direction I found myself in. And each time I'd be in a new direction, I'd be writing another book, because I had to document it. I had to go through it and figure out how it all worked together. And now my fourth book is about to come out. And I hope that's the last geoengineering book I write, though I will be writing another book for the same publisher I have now, Inner Traditions and Bear Company. I will be writing the companion book to the one that's coming out February 4th. That's called The Geoengineered Transhuman. And the new one will be a synthetic biology book. And I think the name of it's going to be Remaining Human, the Nano Synbio Synthetic Biology Assault. So that's the time curve on something I never knew I would be doing. But it was so obvious to me and Clifford that this was a full-scale assault on humanity and life itself on the planet. We weren't blaming aliens. We weren't blaming, some sort of creature coming from outer space. No, this was very much a human drama that needed to be taken care of. And that's how I got involved in. I'd already been studying the deep state at that point. I knew how treacherous many of the players in the deep state were. And I saw that the geoengineering was a tremendous way to globalize the assault on a cellular level. And that's really where I'm at now as I prepare to write this synthetic biology book.
40 years ago, I was, 11 years old. And I remember here in Alberta, Canada, that, in the summertime, we'd have clear blue skies. There wouldn't be any painted lines, chemical trails in the sky 39 years ago. I remember sometimes here we would have blue skies for, sometimes it would be over a week before we would even see any clouds. And then all of a sudden the clouds would come in, the storms, the rain. And then in the summer, sometimes we wouldn't see a cloud in the sky for another week or two sometimes, right? Like it was clear blue. And now we get excited if it's a clear blue sky. It's like, whoa, it's blue. There's no sprays. There's no chemicals. And when did that start, do you think, where they started to put additives in the fuel? are they they're actually spraying out like jets? Like, when do you think that this actually started, where we start seeing these visible chemical lines in the sky?
Oh, that would be when they got HARP going, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project up in Gakona, Alaska. We had ionospheric heaters before then in various places. We had one in Puerto Rico. We had there's a couple up in Norway. Russia had one. China has one. I mean, they're around, just the big ones. And the ionospheric heaters are what they needed in order to, for example, you take the wirelessness of the world for granted. It's very rare that you find a place where you're limited to wired electromagnetism in order to jack up your phone, your car, whatever it is. But back in the 90s is when HARP was able to achieve a very large goal. And it hasn't been particularly published. It's not really hidden. It's there, but I don't think people would understand how large it is. And that is the absolute control over the ionosphere. And the ionosphere is this bubble we all live in that starts about 25 miles up and then keeps going up until it sort of intersects and overlaps with the magnetosphere. And then that goes up thousands of miles into space. So these are sort of like the way I think of them, because you might remember, Jesse, that I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner. I think of these as sort of plasma protective bodies. We all have them. I mean, yeah, we have this physical body. Then we have these very subtle bodies that are more like frequencies with plasma. And plasma is a term that we all need to become familiar with to some degree. It's said to be the fourth state of matter. I highly doubt that it's the fourth state of matter, but the first state would be a gas, and then liquid, and then a solid body. So then in that way, yes, it is the fourth state of matter, but in a way it precedes all of those because plasma is something that the universe is full of. They say that it's 99.9% of the universe is full of plasma. I think it would be more correct to use another term that's been pretty much banished from science, Western science, since the 1920s, and that is the term ether. And ether is, I think, the reason they, or at least they were told that they banned it from science, is because ether is pretty impossible to measure. And Western science really likes things it can measure. So if the universe is full of ether, then what turns it into plasma? Because that would be the next phase of matter, would be you've got the ether there, then you have some sort of electromagnetic event out in space. Just imagine it. This is sort of like Star Wars time. You imagine that electromagnetic event. Now the ether is sort of condensed into a substance called plasma. And plasma is hard to see. Now we remember the electromagnetic spectrum that we have, where you've got gamma rays way out here at the edge, and then you've got radio frequency waves way out, and microwaves way out this end of the spectrum. And in the middle, you've got this tiny, tiny aperture, which is our aperture. That's where we can actually see, taste, touch, sense. We can sense the electromagnetic spectrum in that narrow band. And it's interesting that it's so narrow. I might complain when I die, if there's anybody to complain to, about how narrow that band is, because we really need to be able to see further than that. But it's our machines that can see that now. And so those who own the machines have the power because they can use the entire spectrum. And that's exactly what's going on now, is the entire spectrum is under construction to be absolutely, totally controlled. And that's of course when the brunt of all the experiments we've undergone started in the 90s. Once HAARP had conquered in a way the ionosphere, and then remember we had CERN coming on board at that point in the 50s, and CERN is over at the border of France and Switzerland, and CERN, its strength is to manipulate the magnetosphere. So between the two of them, the idea of control over the ionosphere and to a very large extent control over the magnetosphere. People probably don't remember, but a few years ago, I think it was in 2017, a news item came out that was not like big headlines or anything, because a lot of this has been hidden from us. This is all classified, highly classified experimentation going on in the atmosphere. And because it sometimes will, in a way, harm or put people through things that are not good for them and they haven't given their consent, that's why it's kept secret. But back then, the magnetosphere collapsed completely. So it's like this big bubble, like the ionosphere in a way, but it has a long tail. It looks really different. And it's very powerful. It protects us from the extremities of the sun, of solar energy and radiation. And what happened is it just pancaked. I mean, just pancaked right around our planet. And we had no idea. And then it resurrected. And I don't know how they did that, but I know they being, let's say it's NASA, let's say it's NOAA, let's say it's all the different branches that have to do with the Space Force now, and the space program that has been secret for many years. That they were all in charge of it, and they never said a word, and then they were able to resurrect it. So that's another experiment that went on, and we were told next to nothing about it. Recently, you may have experienced the so-called solar eclipse. Well, that was not a natural solar eclipse. That was created by the geoengineers. It's easy to do now that they control the ionosphere, the magnetosphere, and our atmosphere, basically. And they control our atmosphere chemically and electromagnetically, primarily. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is just give people an idea of how all of this has been engineered, geoengineered, and that is possible. You don't need to import aliens and things from, superior to humanity kind of stuff. No, this is all physics that also has been hidden from us for many years, well, since at least the 1920s. So this is all. This isn't like I went into writing these books because I knew all this. No, this is all discovery. This is all discovery in order to. I'm pursuing a few lines of research over here. As I'm going along and I'm reading, I'm finding out about this and about that and this and that, and realizing how large this picture is and how controlling these people who are running this program are. And what would be the end goal? I kept asking myself. Obviously they want control. I get that. They want wealth. Yeah, okay, I get that. They want minerals from even the moon. That'll drive a lot of money right there. But no, it really turned out that I decided what they wanted really was, yes, control over the atmosphere and control over the Earth, the sun, and our solar system, and even our galaxy. And this all came from a Russian, a Soviet astronomer back in the 50s named Kardashev. And that is exactly what they're pursuing now and they're doing very well. Control over the Earth and the planet, and that entails control over our star, the sun, and they're doing very well with that. It's made entirely of plasma. And then the next phase will be control over the solar system, which would be our 7 or 9 planets, and finally over the galaxy. So, is this just a wet dream of a few scientists? No, actually, I would say that this has always been a deep desire of some of those who are very bright, who come to the Earth and want to do something big, really big. And how much bigger can you get than controlling the planet, the sun, the galaxy? I mean, it sounds crazy when you first hear it, until you see that it's one step after another. The question now is, what about us human beings here? Oh, you brilliant scientists who seem to have no moral compass regarding your own people. How are we paying for this? And what can we do about it, given that we're the masses and they're the ones with the extraordinary technology? And that's the burning question to me. And you can see that the other things that other activists are very engaged in trying to rectify, such as electromagnetics, 5G and 6G, there's people pursuing that because it's very damaging to the human body and the nervous system. So all these parts that we've been pursuing throughout the last 30 or 40 years as activists, you discover them in the geoengineering program. They're all in the program. And that's why my last book, Geoengineered Transhumanism, was so giant. It was 650 pages with 60 illustrations because, I was bringing together 5 topics and trying to show how they fit together. So that's kind of how I made this discovery, this ongoing discovery, from which have come now 4 books so far.
Now, the ionosphere and the magnetosphere, is that inside the Van Halen's radiation belt? And where's the ozone layer? Because they also said we had a hole in the ozone, and was that true? And it magically got fixed because we don't hear about, any ozone leaking anymore.
No, there's still a hole in the ozone. And as far as the Van Allen belts, yes, they are between us and the moon. And that's why we did not go to the moon. That was something that Werner von Braun cooked up to make Americans think that we had gone to the moon in 1969. But that may be very well one of the reasons for this huge transhuman thrust. And yes, from the epigenetic portion of it. Now, I haven't discussed yet how this epigenetic approach of commandeering the environment and making the environment so unfriendly to Homo sapiens that we begin to die. We begin to be replaced by a transhuman race. That's very central to what they're doing now. And so the Van Allen belts may be part of this because they cannot get a human body past that radiation, those radiation belts. And you probably remember that in the 50s, they used all these detonations up there of hydrogen bombs in order to break through the Van Allen belts. But
Operation Fishbowl.
yeah, was it Fishbowl? And what happened instead is they managed to make a new Van Allen belt of radiation. So I think they really they failed in that, and now we're on to maybe Plan B, but maybe this has always been the plan, to come up with a human specimen whose body is more, for example, more silicon than protein or carbon, that where we are protected when we're going off planet and heading for who knows where at however fast we're going, or if they're using the anti-gravity propulsion technology that they've had since we brought the paperclip Nazis over, because we have had it, but it's been very top secret, and generally they only experiment with it, and how fast it can go, and how it is able to move through ether, basically by ether, in other, particularly in South American countries over here. So that whole transhuman piece is what immediately came to mind when we entered the period we're just pulling out of now, I hope, which had to do with the vaccines, so-called. They're not really vaccines, right? They're genetic alterations, and that we are able to save our health. But those who have had at least 2 of the inoculations of whatever substance was in these vials, these people are now part of the transhuman evolutionary group, and they are going forward with what I call an electromagnetic leash due to the Bluetooth and Mac connectivity to the satellites that magically went up when the inoculation started. So we have a new element to the transhuman thrust. We've had 25 years is how that's the extent that I can go to. Of course, they've wanted to control the weather for forever. That's a military wet dream. And that's been going on for a long time. But this instrument, the geoengineering that I write about, it does a lot more than just the weather, a lot more. And Clifford Carnicom came up with a list back in 2005 of what it was doing. And let me just run through that really quickly. So it's weather engineering. And then there's the chemical electromagnetic experiments going on up there. That has to do with a lot of electrical weather events, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, all serving to keep the atmosphere charged. It's very important to keep the atmosphere charged now. Plasma and antimatter experiments, creation and manipulation of Birkeland currents, which are what connect us to all of our different planets and the sun and the moon in our solar system. The creation and manipulation of Alvin Whistler waves, rotating electromagnetic fields. See, what they're trying to do is the way Kardashev said, is to control these systems in order to control our planet. It's not just a socio-political thing. That's the least of their worries, actually. They can use these the electromagnetism, for example, and the chemicals, and because the chemicals are loaded with nanotechnology now. I realize I'm throwing a lot of terms at you, but there's no other way to do this. You can see that they are working very hard on a chemical electromagnetic level. Then they have planetary geophysical operations going on. Now that would include Maui, what happened on Maui. That was a geoengineered fire from space. And what we had happen recently in North Carolina is the same. So it looks like the geography is being changed for minerals, for various, getting rid of population, getting cheap real estate deals. There's a lot of perks to the geophysical planetary operations that are going on, but they have the means now to do it. And they can, because they control the media, they can make it sound like it's a natural God, act of God. But that's getting a little thin now, as we saw happen with North Carolina. Many people have been willing to believe that was weather engineering, and of course it was. Then another fourth operation that's going on through the geoengineering is directed energy weapons. There are a lot of those weapons up there that are able to strike, yes, individuals down here on the Earth. They can hit them with maybe a plasma weapon, but they could also hit an entire geographic area of a socio-political for a wartime weapon, and wipe out the brain power of thousands of people in one swath. I'm serious. So this whole, let me just go on. The fifth one is surveillance and neural manipulation. That's absolute mind control, and that's a done deal. And I think we're all undergoing it, but they're doing it in such a slow boiling way that we are not aware of that. Some of us are experiencing memory loss. Some of us are kind of spaced out. Some of us have lost our idea of why we even are here. There's a lot of things that you would think were just personal, right? But probably aren't. They probably are being caused from space and triangulating here on the Earth with the towers, with the cell phones, with all the different electromagnetic devices that we're so fond of. Then the sixth is the one I'm concentrating on now, the sixth operation of the geoengineers. That would be digital biology, nanotechnology, and transhumanism. And those are the ones that I'm going to hot and heavy come down on. And I started already in the new geoengineering book, The Geoengineered Transhuman. You'll find it to be quite different from the previous three books. I want to just paint a picture of how they're doing this. And then I want to talk about ways that we can protect ourselves, defend ourselves, to remain human. And that's why I call this book I'm writing now, Remaining Human. It's very important to me. And once I realized what they were up to, that the singularity of Ray Kurzweil and Google University, or the Singularity University, were what they were up to regarding transhumanism, I really kind of doubled my pace on getting the word out so that we can begin to experiment with things that will protect us and take in knowledge now that maybe we wanted to study, the life cycle of turtles, and we really have a passion for that. But maybe we're going to have to shift our passion. I wanted to be a great novelist. I wanted to be the next Anais Nin novelist when I was younger. And instead, what am I writing? I'm writing geoengineering books because I think humanity's future depends on us figuring this technology out, because I just don't see the power mongers, the what I call the superheroes, masters of the universe here, who want to be as gods on this planet and don't give a fig about you and me. I have to resist. I have to resist in whatever way I can with whatever gifts I have. And that's how I see how things are for us. Is not everybody needs to go and write books like me, but to do whatever you do in life with the idea of humanity in your mind as not being something you can take for granted, because now we have at least one, possibly more, transhuman races are in production now since the jab came out in 2020 through 2023. So, and then finally, the seventh operation, which I'm not going to go into, but I've already mentioned it, is the cloaking and obscuration and detection of exotic propulsion craft and plasma life forms. Yes, we have saucer technology, as we used to call it. We have had it for, since the 40s, at least, when we brought the paperclip Nazis over and basically turned our country over to them. And they have produced a tremendous amount of this technology that I'm talking about now. They have that kind of mind, and they have that kind of, the difference between a Nazi and say a German romantic is tremendous. And so we have now a certain hardness and sort of inhumanness going on in our scientific community that I'm sure some scientists find themselves in after they were so excited to get into this, because it's definitely the future. And then they realized how amoral or immoral it really is. And then yet they're caught there. They're caught in that vice grip of those who control the sciences in America. So that's I just wanted you to know that that's a lot that the geoengineering is up to, and we're sort of we're in it, and we're receiving a lot of the whatever they're using to and need to practice. We're sort of practice and experimental petri dishes for them, test tubes for them. And so when you're sick or you have headaches or you have thoughts that are really crazy and not yours, you would never sit around and think such violent thoughts, consider that you might be receiving 5G, 6G waves that are influencing you. I mean, it's not at all impossible now. And when people tell you crazy stories about being targeted and that they are looking for some sort of commiseration from you, instead of calling them crazy or giving them the cold shoulder, consider that they might be a victim of some of this technology. So, it's a whole new world is what I'm saying. And the one good thing about the jab is that it has forced people to be more wakeful. I've been yakking and yakking and yakking about this stuff for, I don't know, well, since my whole life, since I was young, since Kennedy's assassination, I've been studying because I realized with that assassination, in which not one person served a day in jail, and it's still very hazy and completely obscured by fake stories, that really we need to really hone our abilities to tell what the intentions are of agencies, individuals, and really pay attention, not just turn on the boob tube and lower our IQ 10 points. I think that, I've never owned a television. I don't own a cell phone, an iPhone. I consider these weapon systems, and I highly recommend that you think twice about indulging yourself in these technologies without understanding quite what their dual use is. That's a military term. A dual use means it can be used for civilian and it can be used for war. So that's, I'll stop there and let you say something.
So I've actually heard of the anti-gravity Viyamas, from the late 1800s. And also I saw a newspaper article from the late 1800s of geoengineering trying to change the weather. I've seen some patents from 1926 of weather modification patents. So we're talking about 100 years that they've even actually started to patent these things. And I think it was 1962 when Lyndon Johnson said, "He who controls the weather controls the world." So we're talking about 62 years ago in 1962, as weird as that is. How much technology have they got in advanced about being able to do that, in the last, 62, in the last 62 years. And, my question is about, you're talking about transhumanizing the earth, transhumanizing people, did all the different Morgellons and the jab and all these different things to amalgamate, they got Neuralink and all these things to amalgamate people into the computer world, transhumanize them into, this, altered state of consciousness. Who would be like, if they're sending off these Morgellon things into the air, wouldn't they as well, their children, their families, are they living underground, or are they accepting this transhumanism? And if it affects one of their family members or loved ones or bloodlines in a negative way, are they, that's collateral damage and a willing risk that they take? Or, the people that are looking to transhumanize, are they transhumanizing themselves as they're transhumanizing the world? Because some people think, well, why would they be spraying stuff in the sky if it's going to affect them and their family members, with these Morgellons or nanobots and things like, who would want to do that to themselves? Or are they trying to transhumanize their own bloodlines as well? Or is this just a human project and they're somehow protected from some of this stuff?
Right. So it seems, maybe I'm missing something, but it seems very obvious to me that among the elites who pretty much govern the geoengineering program, by the way, some of them see a transhumanism as a wonderful thing for them, that they would want to participate in that. They want to be enhanced. They are aware that there is another side to transhumanism, wherein the term enhancement is hardly the idea that would be trotted out. There is the idea that you become machine-like and you become a slave. And they're aware of that for the brunt of humanity. That is, I think that is what they want. As far as protecting themselves, it depends on how far into the inner circle they are. Now, there are minions who work for many people who are cognizant of this dual level that I've just said. One is enhancement, the other is enslavement. They are aware of that. Most of the minions are not. And another story is told to them. And so I don't know that they particularly know what they have been subjected to. The fact that this geoengineered move has been able to happen right in front of our faces for all these years. We don't really know what we're looking at. The cover story has worked pretty good, hasn't it? Climate change and global warming. These have worked good. The carbons thing is completely bogus. But, who has the complexity of thought now in order to make their way through all this and do all the hard labor to understand what these assumptions really mean? And this narrative, take it apart piece by piece and really look at it. Now, most elites have a lot of people working for them because they have the money to pay them, and they're very smart people. But to know all of this, for example, to know all that I know, and who am I? I'm just a writer, somebody who likes to study, someone who can understand these concepts to some degree. Uh, I think that there are as many people in that realm of the so-called the geoengineers and their minions. There are many people who understand, and there are many people who don't understand. For the ones who do understand, they have state-of-the-art equipment, state-of-the-art air filters, state-of-the-art water filters. Uh, when you watch the chemtrails come in for an operation, like what happened in Maui, you read before the fires started, 3 days in advance, huge chemtrails were laid. That's always the sign that an operation is underway. So if you see that happen in your area, you would want to if you're an insider, you would want to make a phone call pretty quickly to find out what's up and to find a way to protect your family and yourself. Not everyone is in on this, and lies are profuse. So, but the ones who really count, I mean, we tend to think in hierarchies like, there's the guy at the top, maybe three guys, and then there's more and more and more and more down the pyramid. But this is a better picture of it would be the compartmentalization that most scientists are under now in this high tech civilization. So you work on just your area. You don't know how that area fits into all the other areas. You only know your area. And that's another way that there's a protective element in this where you don't even know what you're being subjected to. Think of the chemtrail pilots for years breathing that in the cabin, breathing it. They can't avoid it. All the passengers, they're just on for a couple of hour flight, but the pilots are in those cabins, and that's why they had so much fallout from in their health. They and the stewardesses. So, if you don't know, you're expendable. But if you do know, you're in the top ranks, and you bet they have these solutions to keep the chemtrails, like a Tesla dome. They could easily have a Tesla dome put over their whole property, they own acreage, put over, and they would never experience whatever the chemtrails are that are being laid would offer them for breathing or water or anything. So believe me, they're taking care of themselves, the ones who have access to that top rank. The others are all expendables. They may think they're important, but nope, they're not.
Unless you got a Tesla dome protecting your house and they've told you about that and that you've actually have that technology, you're just as expendable as everybody else.
That's
And
right.
it seems like with the emergence of robots and artificial intelligence that maybe they don't need the human slaves anymore. And is this part of the genocide program to eliminate people that could stop them? They take all the, strong fighting military men, they're killing them in the wars, they're the pharmaceuticals pin cushions and injecting them with A to Z of all these crazy things, which makes them obviously go a little crazy, lots of suicides, all kinds of things. But Linda Craig from our Rumble channel says this is literally good versus evil, Lucifer versus God, an attack on all of God's creation. Is it that simple, or is it a lot more complex than, Linda's saying here?
Well, I think there are various levels to this assault. But an assault, it can't be questioned. It is an assault. It's changing the atmosphere. It's changing our blood. Our blood is no longer what it was. It doesn't have nearly the amount of oxygen it used to carry. The red blood cells are diminishing. We are under assault. There is no question in my mind. I'm in touch with Dr. Anna Mihalcha, MD, PhD, and Dr. David Nixon she's in America. He's in Australia. Every other week I attend one of his microscope groups where he has about 30 people there who are all learning how to look at blood under high-powered microscopes in order to see, and they're looking at serums as well. They're looking at the Pfizer serums. They're looking at all of the different corporate serums that were put into people's arms in order to see what is in there. There is all sorts of stuff in there that shouldn't even be there. And one of those things is, believe it or not, what looks to be hardware and software for computerization. And so, you know, this study of the blood indicates that this is what has been going on since the vax and way further back. I mean, 20 years ago, they were getting ready for this, is how you could look at it. And now, as you notice, it's sort of being receded, right? And so everybody thinks, oh, good, it's over. Whew. Well, no, it's not over. Yes, it may be that you won't have the strong arm at the door to force a jab. But this has just begun, what has happened to the people who have had multiple jabs. So we have to see where this is going, but there's no question in my mind but that it's going in a transhuman direction. So what is our relationship with being human? What is being human? I mean, this should be very much on our minds. Is it just having a head and a torso and 2 arms and 2 legs? No, it's a lot more. There's an inner quality to being human. Yeah, you know, you meet some bad guy. You meet some 3-piece suit guy who has no ethics and morality at all. Is he human still? Well, he looks human. He looks really good. He's in an Armani suit. He drives a Tesla. But are you just going by appearances? Are we all still just children here? That we believe in appearances and we can't test the waters to see how deep this person really is, how human they are? I mean, that's kind of the way I think we should be thinking now as an entirely different human race, quote unquote, is someone whose nerves, because a lot of these things that are going into us from the jabs and from what's being dumped on us from the sky, both, we're being sandwiched between these 2 elements, and this is the killer, they both have to do with big pharma. Where do you think those chemicals are coming from that they're using from the sky? Those are from big pharma. Where do you think this is coming from? It's from big pharma. This is a cartel that has tremendous power in this world and has since World War I. If you do your history, which most Americans seem to avoid at all costs, is to study their own history. Yes, we have been under the thumb of big pharma for many years. How many people are on drugs that you know? And I don't mean the illicit drugs. Yeah, we know there's a whole lot of people on that. But what about the pharmaceuticals? How many people are on antidepressants, anti this and anti that, and I mean, and now we have all of these conditions after the jabs of the heart, myocarditis. We have the neural problems. We have headaches. We have, come on, this is our condition. So if we have this going on, instead of waiting for a Trump or a Bobby Kennedy or whoever to come and save us, that ain't going to happen, folks. We're going to have to figure this out and figure out our relationship to a medical industry that wants to keep you sick. Because how are they going to make profits if you don't stay sick? And that's why, in this book I'm about to write, I'm going to talk about how could we have a medical model that supports, some stuff from the past, from herbalists and masseurs and people who are hands-on, much simpler, not a bunch of shiny machines and MRIs and that sort of thing. Can we make it on a human scale? Can we get it back to a human scale so we know what's happening? And to me, I'm living proof. I'm 77 years old. I haven't been to a doctor since I was 13 because I figured out at 13 that, hey, it's a money-making deal because, this doctor saw a chance to take my appendix out and it wasn't even hurting. There was nothing wrong with me, but he saw a chance to make a couple $100 and I get it. And that was when I stopped believing in the Western model. And then in my 20s, I studied Eastern medicine. I studied Chinese medicine, 5,000 years old, to see how I could eat in a certain way, live in a certain way, lifestyle-wise, that where I would know what my health is. I don't need experts because I don't trust experts. And I would like some people to join me in this quest to revive our ability to take care of ourselves and eat good food, raise good food, not stop off for a burger at wherever, not believe in it anymore, but take it back and bring it as close to nature as possible because nature is suffering. You just look at the trees. Go out in the forest and look at the trees. They're suffering because of what's coming down from the sky, because we are not controlling these scientists. They are rogue. They are all rogue now. And so I think it's time to pick up the adventure of being born in a time like this when there's so much going on. Yeah, you can hide it, in your hidey hole and blame others and grouse all the time. But why do that? This is a perfect opportunity to develop things in ourselves that we would not have developed had we not been in crisis. The Chinese character for crisis is danger and opportunity. This is an opportunity to really develop. And so that's my invitation to people and why I'm working so hard, because I'm not making a lot of money on this. I'm certainly not building a career by which I would be admired by thousands. No, this is just the work of a citizen, of a person who was raised to love America, to love the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, this amazing scale of the poor people, the ones who are disenfranchised. There's always going to be the powerful and the rich. Yes. Whatever. I mean, that's not new. But if we ourselves utilize the powers that we have, then this life becomes ours. And we will have to make the compromises we make. But they will not be all compromises. I promise you that. You will have your own areas of power. And I certainly feel stronger than I ever have. And I know a lot about, as you can see, I know a lot about the fight that we're in, but yes, good versus evil. Many levels to that, many levels.
A lot of people, especially in the truth or conspiracy world, seem it's easy to point fingers at every direction, but they don't comprehend there's three fingers pointing back at them every time they do that. And how are they contributing to, what is going on? The tribe from our YouTube asked earlier, not much talk about CRISPR anymore. Why? The CRISPR gene editing, I believe he meant to say CRISPR. How does that play a role in what's going on?
Oh, that's huge. CRISPR is huge, and the reason you're not hearing about it is it's gone black. It's gone black. They don't want to talk about it because it's being used. But one thing I'll give you a clue to, and truthfully, I don't know enough at this point to be able to give a nice rounded essay on this. But the mRNA inoculation, the mRNA substance, yes, it is part of the story of what's going into the body. But to think this is entirely about genetics, you're missing the point. This is hardly about genetics. This is about nanotechnology, friends. And it's the thing that you know the least about because it's the newest. That has not been announced to us. We've had nanotechnology as an industry since the 70s. Have you heard about it? Have you seen lots of essays on it? Have you heard lots of newscasts and interviews about it? No. No, you haven't. Why do you think that is? Because it's huge and it's scary and it's big. So, I recommend the first book I ever read on it is just called Nano. And it's the story of the young man, Eric Drexler, who was a grad student in the 70s, and how he discovered the nanotech going on. But I think the book, I wouldn't believe all of it because I think it's a PR piece that hides the military interest in nanotechnology because the military is using a lot of nanotechnology now. So I think we need to look at that. And then you can understand that the CRISPR, you can make that on a nano level. You can make a CRISPR on a nano level. Did you know that? And then you can inject that right into somebody's arm and it's in there. And it can be programmed from outside the body at some place where they've got 5G, 6G, and they're able to do transmissions, perhaps through the Bluetooth, straight into nanotech that's in your body already that will then begin to take control of the CRISPR in order to cut this and that. So this is this is huge. Everything's getting tinier, and that may make us feel safe, but it probably shouldn't, because tiny is the new power in town.
Sun Moon Starwater from our Rumble channel says, what about infrared and blue light therapy and med beds? The talk of med beds seemed to get a lot of people feeling complacent, thinking that they're just going to be able to jump in some bed and they're gonna get all fixed. That's all over the Q world and all over, everybody thinks that the savior is here and we're gonna be fixed and med beds are just gonna fix us. What's your thought? I know infrared is good, blue light therapy is good, but I just wanted you to maybe comment on your thoughts on med beds, how they're just miraculously gonna heal the world.
Well, if I can ever see a really decent essay on med beds, I would love to see one. I see a lot of what I call new age writing about med beds. My guess is, and this is totally a guess because I haven't been able to read anything that is real meaty on med beds yet. I know I will. I assume it is a revitalization of the etheric forces in the body. I assume if it really works for health and can fix your vitality in particular, then I assume it's working on the etheric forces that Rudolf Steiner calls the etheric body in us. I didn't know this when I was a kid, but I used to amuse myself in grade school because I was bright, and I'd finish my work pretty much immediately, and I would watch the adults who came in the room, the teacher and maybe some other people, because around them I saw a white light, just white. It was always white, and it was only about, I don't know, an inch or two around them, but it looked to be like a light shining out from their bodies, and I assumed everybody could see it, and I would just kind of watch it, and see if it would keep, if it was the same in everybody, if it was just as 2 inches. And later, much later, I realized that what I was looking at was the etheric body that is pretty much completely uh, in our physical body, so that you don't see a lot. If and I don't think what I was seeing was means I'm clairvoyant or anything like that. I think it was the lighting. I think I was able to see it because I relaxed my eyes. I remember just relaxing, and I'd watch it. I remember the day that I saw a woman come into the classroom, young woman, and she had pink polka dots in hers, and I couldn't figure out what the heck that was. I had never seen anyone with pink polka dots in their white band of light around their body. Years later, I met someone who explained to me that that was probably uh, for the what's it called, the pill, the one that keeps you from getting pregnant.
Oh, the morning after.
No, I think it was the pill. Like, women used to be just on the pill,
Oh, yeah, the birth control.
birth control pill. And I think that made the most sense to me because the etheric body is very influenced by that the estrogen and other hormones. It's the hormonal, and so that's why I know I have an etheric body. I know it because Rudolf Steiner says it, but I actually have experienced it, and so that that has to do with our health, and that's what I want us to become more aware of are the things. Yes, the immune system, but the etheric body is another part of it. And what was the question we were answering? Did I answer it?
Um, I've gone through so many comments and through a bunch of things in my head. Well, what was the question? Oh, it was about CRISPR, I think, or did we go from there?
Oh, we went from there, I thought. Oh, yeah, she was talking about the med bed. And
Med beds, yeah.
and then, so to me, that's probably what the med bed is working on. As far as the infrared, yeah, I do like infrared very much. And then blue light therapy, I'm not as familiar with that. But one of the things I am cautious of is recommending utilizing electromagnetic uh, machines to fix electromagnetic problems. You see the problem there? I'm really not sure about that, but I can say that a lot of people now, and I love it, are experimenting. They're experimenting. They have the courage to experiment. You're not going to use high voltage or anything like that. You're not going to use high frequency, but you have these machines by which we can um, enhance possibly uh, just not like x-rays and things where we know the radiation will be harmful. So we are only beginning to probe into our own health through our own means, and it's very exciting.
Now, we had Royal Rife technology, which obviously was, helping people with these ailments through frequencies. That got derailed, sidetracked for many years, and more people are, looking at how these frequencies, can heal us. I think Tesla even said the future of medicine is in frequency and vibration. We have like Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. She created an EES system, an energy enhanced system. I know Jason Shirka, and we had another person. They've got these systems where people are going into these frequencies. It's not specifically like a med bed where you're in a bed and, like they have a Star Trek, they got a little scanner and they can scan things, but they're creating these atmospheres that are helping people with, things that are going on. And there's been some miraculous recoveries from this. So, to think that, a med bed, it will never happen. We've already have people creating things that are actually helping and healing people. Is it the med bed that, is being, touted as the savior? But I think along with some of these negative players, there's also the good people that are trying to create good things. And I think it's not just all bad, that we have a lot of good people like yourself that are making people aware of some of these weapons. And then you have good scientists, good people that are working on things. And I don't think that this place is just all bad, because it'd be very depressing to think that we're going down a dark road and there's no way to come back to the light. But I think that there's been a balance between some of this dark and light, and that we keep, is more they try to enslave us, there's others that are looking to free us. And I think that there's this balancing, and I don't think the scale is balanced one way or another. And I think it's a fight like the good and evil. And I think it continues on. And I don't think that evil is winning. And I think in this last 4 or 5 years, I've seen more people become awake and aware and question than I've seen in the 30 plus years combined that I've been rattling these cages trying to wake people up. So I have a lot of optimism that we are headed in the right direction.
We are headed in the right direction now, but it's because we have been awakened. Can we stay awake? Can we stay awake? This is not done automatically, and it has to do with our practices in our daily life, our lifestyle, what we spend our time on, what thoughts we have going through our minds. These are the things that, are like, I always remind people, in the word discipline is the word disciple. If we can, and I hold myself to a very stringent schedule, diet, and lifestyle, so that I can be as old as I am and getting older, 77 right now, and keep myself healthy and my mind clear and productive. These are the things that are the real values in life, not how beautiful we are, or how, how smart we are, or how our career is going. It's more, what kind of qualities are you manifesting? And if you can do that, you will help the human future. I promise you that. But you must hold yourself to it and not look for others to save you, necessarily even to lead you. You can take ideas from me, but you don't want to be like me. It's not, it's a matter of utilizing what God has given us, and for the good, for not just our own flesh and blood family, and not just our own neighborhood or our city or whatever, but for all of humanity. Make the assumption that your small acts on an everyday level have tremendous power you have no idea of. I'm telling you, it's a miracle that this universe seems to be very intelligent, extremely intelligent. I have experienced it. And it is the good intelligence. It is the intelligence that says, use your free will well. Dear human being, use your free will well, and I promise you great things. You know, when Jesus said to his disciples, you shall say to these mountains, move, and they shall move. What was he talking about? How could that be? But if you live in the middle of your humanity and you love your humanity, not to be an angel, not to be some bigwig, but to really live into the best of humanity, the beautiful, the grace of the human, the courage of the human, the wisdom of the human. There are so many good qualities, and we've been barraged by the telecom industry filled with Satanists to believe that everybody has an evil intent and we shouldn't believe in anyone. And that's just not true. On the other hand, we should not buy cheap. Just because you think it looks good does not mean it's necessarily good, right? So it's a very big challenge to be here if you're living the conscious life. And I believe that the conscious life is what will save at least a remnant of the Homo sapiens humanity, because this is just the beginning of transhumanism. This is just the beginning of synthetic biology. Can we stop these people? I don't think so. Will it just die out like a fad? I don't think so. So we have a tremendous challenge ahead of us, and we need all our strength and our capacity. And now, if I could just say a word for rather, mundane food instead of the med beds. The mundane food and how we eat and the quality of what we eat. Yeah, okay. The organic gardens are getting pummeled from space as well by the chemtrails. I understand that. But did you know that 38 countries in this world, it is a felony to come into the country with any GMO products on you? If they're found on you, you go to jail. That's how serious 38 countries are about not letting their people eat GMOs. And most of you are probably still eating GMOs. There is no, in GMO seeds we used to call them the Terminator seeds. That's why you have to buy them every year, because they're dead. They're synthetic. That's not real food. It may look like a real carrot. It may taste like a real carrot. But does it have any nutrient for a true human being? No, it has a nutrient for a transhuman. And that's why they've been feeding us GMOs since the 30s. I eat GMOs when I go out to eat, and that's what prevents me from going out to eat, because I love feeling special and being waited on in restaurants, right? Because I'm working hard here, and I'm lonely. I want somebody to give me good food, tasty food. But I know that I'll pay for that GMO experience, because I know those restaurants are using GMOs because it's cheaper and they can make more profit. So let's wake up to these facts. These are facts. This is not Elana making up something. No, those seeds of GMOs are not of nature. They are synthetic. So eat organic, even if it has nanotech on it and blah, 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 because it will. There's no way to get around it. But now, besides the food, and I eat miso soup 2 times, 3 times a week. I eat foods that I know will build my immune system. I need to keep that strong. But then there's other things to do in your lifestyle, so that you are paying attention. You're not watching TV. Get rid of that TV. It's a mind control device, has been from the very beginning. From the very beginning, it's been about mind control. I don't own a cell phone. I I don't need it. I have an answering machine on my uh, phone that is, what's it called? The ones that plug in. Um, Whatever.
Landline.
Landline. That's it. Thank you. So, uh, make those decisions so that you stay strong. That's all. And of course you're going to have some fun, but you can have fun without a lot of technology. And if you can't, you better think about that.
Well, I think that's what's really missing a lot for a lot of people is getting out into nature, going camping and hiking and hugging trees and getting outside and, doing things away from this technology. I was thankful when I got Hawk because I was constantly, my hips were really sore because I was bone on bone for my, I got a bunch of travel injections that I think attacked my hip joints, my cartilage, and so at the time, I just would go out and do whatever I had to do, and then I'd get home, and then I wouldn't want to do anything. And then I got my puppy, which got me out and here into the mountains and seeing sunsets and sunrises and getting out and away from technology is, it's a good thing because it seems like a lot of people, they say that they're free, but are they the slave to the technology that's been
Yeah.
presented in some way? It's been sucking people in so many different ways. And when you talk about this genetically modified food, a lot of people don't even believe that wheat has been modified. And like you said, in the 30s, I think it was in the 40s or 50s when they genetically modified the wheat and then became the wheat belly. And then with milling process, took out the iodine out of the wheat. We used to have iodine when we would have bread, from the wheat that was being farmed, but it's no longer. And when you talk about there's not having any nutrients, what happens with this genetically modified food is that the body doesn't recognize it because it's been modified. So it automatically, instead of processing it through your organs, it stores it into the fat to protect the organs from this modified substance that the body is like, what the heck is this? And that's the big problem why we have these obesity and people, not being able to sick and, unhealthy is because the body's not able to process the crapola that's being put into the food supply, especially in North America. You talked about these other countries. I remember when I was stuck in Thailand about 7 or 8 years ago, I crashed a motorbike and through a lawyer's office window and I broke my heel in 2 places. So I was stuck in Thailand on Koh Phangan, which is Full Moon Party Island, for like 3.5 months. And all I was eating and that's when I stopped eating meat. And I was just eating this Thailand food and I slimmed right down. And it was just like, it's crazy. And people talk about going to different places like, where they just start eating the food. They're there for 3, 4, 5 months and their body just transforms. They're not eating too much different, but it's just for some reason, because of this modified food, the body doesn't recognize it. And that's, I think, where the big problem comes with this,
Yeah.
GMO modified food.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. That's exactly right.
Now, we have here Taffy from our Facebook says, what about colloidal silver or castor oil? Have you looked into these things? She's asking what are good things for detoxing and helping the body. We talk about they're attacking us, but we can also do things to keep us ahead of, no weapon formed by man shall prosper unless you let it, right? And so there's certain things we can do. And, your thoughts on colloidal silver and castor oil.
Yeah, colloidal silver. That's an interesting spelling there. Colloidal silver. I don't use. I'll confess to people. I hardly use any supplementary anything. I'm too busy to research everything that I could take because I know that eating good food and having a stable lifestyle is really what makes my immune system so strong. Um, Colloidal silver, I don't take it internally. I use it. I have a spray bottle that I keep around if I'm concerned about a little nick or a cut or something like that. I'll spray it with colloidal silver. I don't think about it much. I know there are people who super believe in it, but I don't. I really don't know enough about it to talk about it. But the other one, the castor oil, I have just now started putting castor oil on my eyebrows to make sure that I'm not losing all my eyebrows. And my eyebrows are growing back in. It really works. And so, I like to keep these medicinals around for what occurs to me, but I'm really not disciplined in that because I just simply don't feel that I really need to be doing that as much as I need to be concentrating on writing and posting every day. I post at 2 sites every day. I comment on various articles that I post, and that seems to be very valuable to people to give them some guidance through these times. Not that I know everything. I certainly don't, but I have spent most of my adult life since I was in my 20s studying and reading many books and studying the events. Because when Kennedy was killed, I had had tea with him in the Rose Garden when I was 16. I was at Girls Nation, and it was the same year that Bill Clinton was at Boys Nation. I didn't know him at all, but we were both in the Rose Garden at the same time with Kennedy 3 months before he was shot like a dog in the streets of Dallas. And truthfully, I've never gotten over it. And that has fired my passion to continue to study the deep state and the topic of evil as a topic, and to keep track of it, especially as it affects children, because they are, the Satanists are, that's part of their religion, is to utilize children. So, these are things that I feel from the influence of Rudolf Steiner, that my consciousness is a great tool in this war, and that I must feed it and give it good food and make sure that my thinking is productive regarding the truth. What the Greeks called the good, the true, the good, the beautiful, the good, and the true, and that's something I take as very right next to my faith. Is the effort to really live these high principles of human beings, real human beings, not humans who have sold their birthright for a lucrative career or have been removed from their spirit has been removed from them by terrible rituals and rites and acts that have robbed them of their human heritage. These are very serious things, and anything I can do to help those people who have had that happen to them, I'm very dedicated.
We have Kyoto Leong from our Rumble channel says, who controls the deep state?
Yes, the deep state primarily, in my opinion, this is just my opinion from a lifetime of tracking it down over and over again, is CIA. The CIA was a very bad decision in 1947. And Truman, Harry Truman, right? Truman, he realized subsequent to that he had made a big mistake. And then Kennedy came in and he fired Allen Dulles from being the DCI of the CIA, and all hell broke loose and Kennedy was a dead man. So to me, the CIA must be reined in. I have no idea if Mr. Trump if hopefully he makes it to the office that he is intended for in the next 2 months. I have no idea if he can do a thing about the CIA. It has a corporate arm now called In-Q-Tel. And between its corporate arm of In-Q-Tel and its agency power, which says you will give us all the money we need and we don't have to tell you anything about how we're spending it. They have never had to do that. That this is a huge problem in this country, and they have been living off of drug proceeds and child trafficking proceeds for all my lifetime. So if I were to say who runs the deep state, I would have to say that, and then I could add Mr. Obama. I could add all kinds of people. It's basically if you're willing to sell your soul, the CIA is buying.
Kyoto says CIA created by, and some people feel the CIA means Catholic Intelligence Agency. It came from the Vatican was the one, but I know once Paperclip came in, the Nazis came in from, this supposed losing the war, but then all of a sudden all these scientists and these Nazis came into America. They created the CIA, they created NASA, they put them into these pharmaceutical companies. So
media and the
media, Mockingbird Media, is created, but kind of wild.
I don't mean the Catholic one. I didn't know about that. No, I mean the Central Intelligence Agency.
No, some people feel that it was created by, the Vatican, and the joke is CIA means Catholic Intelligence Agency because, these deep states run through the Vatican. It's run through the monarchy. The monarchy, the Vatican created the CIA, created all of these other places, Rothschild funded, same type of, people, but, basically all roads lead to Rome, and Rome never fell. It just became the Catholic Church. And Catholic Intelligence Agency is a funny moniker for CIA because it seems like they would probably be taking orders from the Black Pope, the Gray Pope, these people that, would be probably the head of the snake.
I mean, that's a real spaghetti, isn't it? Because you're right that all of them are involved. Illuminati, all of them, they're all involved because they're the elites. And so for me, I just try to keep it simple and American because I mainly work here. And it's just like people come to me and they want to know what I think of aliens and, off-planet intelligences being brought in by CERN, etc. I don't concentrate on that. I concentrate on the human level because I want humanity to last. We've just begun our evolution as higher beings, and we are intended to be higher beings. I don't mean gods. I mean, somewhere between the saints and the angels. We are intended to be good because we love the good, not because we're afraid to break a law. I want us to be free will and not be run by AI systems, and that's what's here. And I think a lot of people now already are being run by AI systems. So, we need to then kind of look at what being human looks like so that we can protect that element in ourselves and our children and our grandchildren. If we can. I mean, it's just an idea. It's not like I've tried it for 20 years and it works. It's just an idea. And so, your ideas, as you come to ideas, share them and find people you can talk to about this without just waiting for the internet shows. The more we can make it really human and face to face over coffee or tea or something, the better it'll be, the stronger it will be. And that's from someone who spends most of the day on the computer because I'm writing books. If I were not writing books, I would be out in life more. I would be out there where there's so much to do. There's so much to do out there. But I really need to use my gifts for writing these books that the future will be interested in more than the present is, because it's just too crazy now. It's too much chaos. We're all just hanging on, trying to get day by day and try to figure things out.
We have our that way from our YouTube channel. It says 14 people on YouTube. What the F? I think there would be hundreds. We've had 6 YouTube channels deleted, around 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. Our last one had over 4,000 deleted a couple months ago. We're back up to almost 2,000. We do have we're on a bunch of different platforms right now. We're live on my Facebook profile. We're live on the Missing Link live profile. We're live on the YouTube, the Missing Link live. We're live on Twitch. We're live on Twitter, and we're live on Rumble. We have around 250 people here live with us right now. So there is, even though you just see a little bit on YouTube, we're building our YouTube back out. Share out the links, try to get more and more people. We have interviews almost every single weekday, even sometimes on weekends, just trying to bring you the best information that we can, because we know knowledge is power. The more knowledge we all have collectively, the less power they have over us. And, I truly believe that in our hearts. And the reason why we've been doing this is our 829th interview that we've done. Oh no, nine. I said that wrong. I think we're 929. We're getting close to 1,000. I'm gonna have to correct. We're gonna correct that. And since you were last on, it was a few years ago. We interviewed this lady named Judith Very Baker. And have you heard of who that is?
Sure, the Kennedy assassination.
She was the part of the Kennedy, knew about that. She was actually Lee Harvey Oswald's girlfriend. And she had a love affair. They were both married, but they had a love affair together. And he was actually, because you mentioned Kennedy and being there, he was actually loved Kennedy and would have protected him with his life. And he was working for the CIA, of all things. He was in Russia undercover, and they actually used him as a scapegoat.
Yeah.
And then Jack Ruby kills him. But who's Jack Ruby? Jack Rubenstein. He wasn't even Jack. He was a Jewish gangster. Is the one that actually killed Lee Harvey Oswald. Supposed to be his friend, but it's kind of crazy how this all just kind of plays out. And we've brought Judith here numerous times. I'm actually going to invite her back on here, and she's told all about the story. And they had hired her to create, because she was able to accelerate cancer in mice. So they wanted to use that to give to Castro to kill Castro. And this was when she was like 18 or 19 years old, because she was this scientist. So she's had quite a life. So, but I was going to ask because you mentioned how that Kennedy assassination meant so much to you, and we went through that quite a bit.
That's great that Judith was on. I met her. She doesn't know me, but I met her at the Kennedy 50th. I flew to Dallas so that I could be there to celebrate, commiserate on the 50th anniversary of Kennedy's assassination in Dallas. It was a great time. I was at the I can't remember how you say it, but it's a conference on people studying assassinations that belonged to John Judge at that time, one of the great critics of the American government. And just 3 months later, he was killed in his hospital bed. Yeah. John was a great guy. And anyway, that's where I met Judith.
So we have in Canada, we have our prime minister is Justin Trudeau Castro. Some people believe he's the illegitimate son of, Fidel Castro.
Mhm.
His mom said back in the day how handsome Castro was, and apparently she was there for 8 months or something. So, it's a good high possibility. But his deputy prime minister, the second in charge, is Chrystia Freeland. She's
Yeah.
got the same last name as you. Is there any relation to you?
I don't know. I mean, I was surprised to see that because I rarely run into Freelands, but in Missouri, my home state where I was born, there are a ton of Freelands. So I don't quite know how that works.
Wow, God's B61 from our Rumble says, I was 3 when Kennedy was killed. Remember all the woman crying. Oh, I thought he said I was there. I 3, I just saw it as there. I was going to say, wow, he was there. But
But that was one of the first um, speeches I gave because when I got back and then he was killed 3 months later, got back from Girls Nation, the organizations in town that had paid for my trip invited me to give a talk about my day with Kennedy, and that was when I had to give a talk to a room full of sobbing Americans. It was very profound. No, I mean, nobody can realize that they televised that assassination. Have you all really thought about that? I mean, like, you're so used to 9/11 and the omnipresence of the television, but at that time, 1963, very few people had TVs, and they were all black and white. And so they chose to assassinate him so that it was full on TV around the world, and then they repeated the scene of Jackie crawling over the trunk looking for his brain that had been blown out of his head. They repeated it ad nauseum, just as they did 9/11, the buildings crumbling and caving in. They played that over and over. That is definite CIA technique for mind control. It's re-traumatizing people so that they're very disheartened, and a sadness reigns in them. So to me, when I had to give that talk with all this emotion and women running out of the room crying, it was that was how America was then. We just were not used to seeing such violence on TV, for one thing, but it was completely unexpected. Yeah.
now,
Fortunate that I met him, though. I feel very fortunate.
now, you were talking about mind control. So they, had MK Ultra, where they were doing these experiments to torture people, torment people, drug people, do all these things to get people to do things. And this was, again, right around probably the same time, 60 years ago, when they started to do all of these weird and wacky experiments. At the same time, the Nazis came into America when, this stuff was going on.
Well,
They have,
they brought it. That was all from the camps. They brought all their experiments from the camps, and that's what started the MK Ultra program. 1953 is when MK Ultra started in the United States.
so modern look, so 60 years, they did all these experiments, tested all these weird stories, and people, they have the satanic ritual abuses, all these crazy trauma that they've been introducing, and it's really became a trauma-based reality where most people, if not everybody's had to go through some sort of trauma or another. Even just death of a loved one is trauma in its sense, right? So there's a lot of trauma that is here. But I want to move towards some of these these mass shooters, these mass some of these false flags. Some people think that maybe some of it is voice to skull. You kind of mentioned a little bit earlier about having thoughts that aren't your own. They could convince people things that are happening or not happening in their head. They can actually use your own voice to talk to you in your head, to think that you're actually telling yourself these things. So I'm just wondering how many of these shootings and other things that some kid or something is doing, school shootings, how many do you think that potentially is because of some of these voice to skull or some of these frequencies, or are people just going crazy because of the system that it is, and that's is just a byproduct of it?
No, I think it's you're on the right track. And I would add the SSRIs. I don't remember what that acronym stands for, but it's those terrible drugs that they give mainly young people when they're antidepressants, antipsychotics, these big pharma creations that are much more than they seem. They are not just a drug. There is something else going on. I've tracked this down several times, and I am convinced that some sort of terrible possession overtakes these young people from that drug. I don't understand how it's done, but I know that it is uh, tremendously frightening for them, and they have nightmares. They have dreams that seem to be being engineered. My suggestion is, it. I know it's very hard when we have young people who are so depressed and we think they might kill themselves, and we want to be able to keep them here. We don't want them to do that. But there must be another way, and maybe talk therapy. I don't know. But please avoid those SSRIs. Please. They are evil. There is something wrong with them. They are not doing what they were created to do, or the big pharma said they were created to do. So those things, yes, those are involved in all the shooters. If it makes the big news, you know it's a Manchurian candidate. You know that. It's MK Ultra, Manchurian candidate, and that poor person, they may shoot and they may kill people, but there was another finger on the trigger, not theirs. Not theirs. No, that's just not how it works. Even the shooters that seemingly went after Trump, those people are prepped, and they're prepped with drugs and programming, MK Ultra programming. MK Ultra is very alive and well. Never let anyone tell you differently. Yes, it does not have the same name now. It even might have several names for different programs, such as the Havana syndrome. The Havana syndrome that happened, which appears to have been infrasound and caused brain damage in these poor embassy workers in Cuba. These things need to be researched and looked thoroughly through before you assume to believe what the corporate controlled media is telling you. And that's, I mean, in a way, isn't it amazing that MK Ultra is still going on? I mean, it was 1953, and yet look at this. We still have it. That's the CIA. That's what I mean. This has to end. This is destroying this country, and the Bill of Rights. Oh God, it just drives me crazy to think about what we could have been had we not brought the paperclip Nazis in and scrubbed their records and put them at our military bases, our hospitals, our universities. We put them everywhere. We gave them carte blanche on the American system. And I'll hold the Dulles brothers, Alan Dulles and John Foster Dulles, responsible for that till the day I die.
You mentioned the SSRIs, so it's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. are a class of prescription drugs used to treat depression and anxiety disorders. Common SRIs are citalopram, escitalopram, fluoxetine, Prozac, Lovox, Paxil, Zoloft, Celex, and Cipralex. So a lot of people Prozac.
And
Someone said earlier there's got fluoride in there.
yeah, Zoloft is evil incarnate. So yeah, I hope people will really look into that. Don't just go from what I say. But I have talked to many young people, many meaning 40, 50, I don't know, over the years, who have shared with me what happened to them when they were on these SSRIs. And it is not pretty. It is nightmares, even after they go off of them. So there's something going on there that I hold akin to black magic. I don't have another term that gives the substance of what I think, that it's kicking in another dimension in some way through that drug. I do not understand it. But, you know, when the LSD was around and the various drugs, even mushrooms, etc., my generation got involved in, I'm from the 60s generation, it was, you know, the frequency is completely changed on those drugs. So that's what I'm saying, is the frequency is completely changed on these SSRIs. And do not trust them. Do not put young people on these drugs. No matter how upset they are and how depressed they are, you have to work through depression. I mean, I remember being very depressed when I was 19, and I was going to Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. I loved that university, but I was so depressed. I played bridge for 15 hours a day just to make sure I could hold myself and not just be weeping and totally depressed. And there were reasons I was depressed, but it was really sort of a terrible mood that overtook me. And I had to work through that. I had to work through it. And there were some very nice people who tried to help me do that. I did not go to a professional, an expert, so called. I did not take drugs. I just worked through it and I got through it and I was stronger for it. You know, let's not forget the old wisdom.
You mentioned, this black magic, scriptures talked about pharmakia.
Yeah.
God's B61 says stay away from pharmakia, poison made from petroleum. So it seems like this pharmakia, these sorcerers, these dark magicians who are creating these spells through this black magic, through these pills, which is petroleum based, meaning benzene. They're putting benzene into people, which is causing all of that. And this is like witchcraft, it's
Yeah.
sorcery, it's black magic. And I was your thoughts on the zombie apocalypse. When you were talking about when you were 19 and depressed, you worked through your depression. When people have issues now, they go to a doctor, a drug dealer, that gives them one of these pharmakia, sorcery, black magic pills.
Yeah.
They pop the pill. Oh, I'm not depressed anymore. I become a zombie. I'm no longer who I am. I'm controlled by these drugs and these spells and these injections, and become. I think we've got a world full of drug addicts. I much prefer someone that's taking recreational drugs over a drug addict that's under these pharmaceutical spells. And it's funny how the recreational drugs, druggies were the ones that got the bad rap, while everybody else is popping all these pills and pointing at these recreational druggies as the problem as they're popping. But do you think that could be like a zombie apocalypse, or what do you think this threat of a zombie apocalypse is?
Well, and it's complicated now by the fact that it isn't just the drug, it's also the electromagnetism that can stimulate the drug, that can cause other things to happen in the drug. And that's what's going on with the jab, is that a lot of people are on those terrible electromagnetic leashes that are connected to the what's it called? I mentioned it before. Suddenly my mind is blocking. From the electromagnetic leash that is that people are on while their biometrics are being checked and rechecked electronically, and then transmitted to like some sort of fusion center or someplace where they're collecting that data in order for the doctors to see how their experiment is going. Meanwhile, the person is in, and you know how electromagnetic fields are at 90-degree angles, and so there they are. They're locked in this electromagnetic field. Not to mention the electromagnetic fields around them from other people's 5G and 6G systems, and other people who are vaxxed and their electromagnetic fields. I mean, I can almost, because I've taught myself to do this, I can almost see it. And that's why, I mean, I have to be careful when I'm around a lot of people, because you've heard the word, what's that
Shedding.
word? Shedding. When I'm around a lot of vaxxed people, which is very rare, I don't go around crowds at all. Then I can even feel, if I'm in a certain position to these 90-degree electromagnetic fields of these vaxxed folks who are on this electromagnetic leash, I immediately feel nauseous, and I just don't get nauseous. I have a digestive system, that's just iron proof. But I will feel that, and I think another person might feel a headache. You feel various symptoms according to who you are. So then all I do is I play with it. I back up from where I think the field is that I'm in and see if I immediately have relief. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have to leave the room. I just have to get away. But I understand that that's the shedding that I'm picking up, because a lot of biology now is not virus. It's digital. It's a digital code sent over the 5G and 6G systems straight into that person who's vaxxed, or even the unvaxxed can happen. This is what I mean by biology is not what you think it is anymore.
It's biodigital convergence now.
Yes.
So they've converged biology with digital. It's biodigital convergence, where you have scumbags like Noah Harari say, oh, humans are now hackable, because they're putting technology, amalgamating, and again, this transhumanism, biodigital convergence, creating robots where they could essentially be able to turn people off or put them in timeout, or do things
Well, and
maybe through these towers if they don't follow the rules.
that's the zombies. That's the zombie effect. That's the way it'll happen. You can create the zombie effect electromagnetically, along with, if you have had the vax and you have the software and the hardware in you on a nano scale. That's all it takes, and you can do a whole crowd of people and make them like that. This, and this connects with what's happened to the MK Ultra, of how it's gone electromagnetic, and yes, it uses the drugs. The drugs can be stimulants. The drugs can set up various patterns of frequencies. They're both working together. They're all working together in this, because it's control. And again, let's go back to, okay, I already said, figure out what being human means. Let's take a look at, why are they so interested in taking what is human out of human beings? Because they want to thumb their noses at God. They want to thumb their noses at the divine. They want to be gods on this planet. And in many cases, yeah, okay, depopulation looks good, but what about, and I've brought this up on other radio shows, which is a bit out there to Americans anyway. Certainly wouldn't be out there in India. But what about, what are they going to do if they're purging the population and culling people? What are they going to do with reincarnation? I mean, people are going to come back. You know, this is where we do our school. This is the human school where we learn how to be really good and amazing humans. We don't just learn to be couch potatoes. This is what we do here. So, how do you keep people from coming back, even if they're purged in 6 ways to Sunday? Well, that is something I think that they are working on right now, because I have information from Europe, from a group of clairvoyants, not Steiner people necessarily, but Steiner people are in it, who are getting messages from the dead, those who have died after the jab, who are saying they are paralyzed and they can't move forward and they can't move backward, and they're terrified because they do not have any freedom on the other side. So are we dealing with, in this case, with the black magicians? Have they done something in the vax, in the jab, that messes with our core frequency of who we are as each human being, who we are? Have they found a way to do that? I could say a lot about that because I'm following several trails in that of various technologies that are working with frequencies to dismantle the spiritual nature of the human being. You know, and Rudolf Steiner said 100 years ago, almost exactly, 1824 or 1924, that that there would come doctors so materialistic that they would dedicate themselves to creating a vaccine that once you took it, you no longer thought anything spiritual again.
So where that came from the research that I've done, was because of Islamic fundamentalism. They were creating a thing that would cut off from the God gene, because this was their, I think it came from the military, where it said that because of this, terror bombers, these bombers are doing it because of their belief in their God. And they figured that if they could disconnect people from their God gene, then you wouldn't have these Islamic fundamentalists, these suicide bombers. And that was the reasoning behind them wanting to disconnect people from the source, the God gene, disconnect them from their empathy or whatever it is. That was the reasoning, or what they publicly said was the reasoning why they were doing that type of research.
Yeah, and I think that was a fantastic disinfo piece, because um, it's the right thing that they are admitting, at least that person who was up in front of that little group of guys at wherever it was, they were admitting that this is on their minds, is to be able to uh, control the spiritual nature of the human being. But it's not about the Islam. It's about the nature of the human being is not in a gene, a spiritual, like a God gene. It's the nature of the human being that is spiritual. That, I mean, it's kind of messing with us because we're in bodies and we're constantly worried about these bodies and keeping them going, and and dressing them, and all the things we do with these wonderful, I mean, these brilliant bodies. I mean, that's why I know they don't want to. You asked a while back about Do they just want to destroy us? I don't think so, because these bodies are extraordinary. I mean, I've read 2 books now wherein the human body is being compared. I'm sure very purposefully they wrote them this way, to a computer. Uh, our organs, our cells, the way everything works in perfect harmony, is incredible, incredible. And so, but we are. I mean, you would have to have quite an amazing body if you were going to incarnate a human being of such high stature. I mean, think of Jesus. Now, whether you think he was a god or not, think of the high nature of Jesus as a man, as a human being, a real human being, and how the Christ came into him when he was baptized in the River Jordan. And that Christ was was something else. I don't know. I can't. I have no words for that. But it was not a human being. It was something else, something very high, very high. And it came to go through death, to change death for the human being, because we were like the Greeks. If you read the Greek myths, you'll see how the Greeks, they feared death so tremendously, because death for them was the end. It was not another life, a spiritual life. And so, when Jesus came from, I mean, in Mark or Matthew, or I can't remember where, it talks about the lineage, the blood lineage of Jesus. It's like, and then begat this and begat that and begat this and begat that. It's long bloodline. And you know how the elites are always concerned about their bloodline. The bloodline has some sort of power, some sort of force that we, just regular people, are not concerned with. But now that the blood is being attacked, the real human blood is being attacked from the sky and from the big pharma jabs, I'm very interested in blood. I'm very interested in blood and what's going on with it. So to see that the human being, the body is so extraordinary. In comes the human being. We start out as a little teeny weeny person. Hopefully we get some parents who don't let us die, at least. Maybe they're not perfect. Maybe they're even abusive. But we don't die, and we become these adults. And then we take on our mission in a way, very similar to Jesus and how he did it. We take a mission, and now we're in these bodies, and we need to take care of these bodies, because these bodies are under assault right now. So that's how I see it. And I know people are going to notice. This is why I'm so popular with some people and why others can't stand me, I'm sure, is I feel life is, yes, it's real, but it's also incredibly mythical. And there are great things going on around us and in us. And we have been great beings, great people, or great somethings. I mean, there's a lot going on around us. We're not just some little couch potato in Pocatello, Idaho, or something. We're really
divine.
We're divine, and we're becoming true free will beings who use their freedom for the good, the true, and the beautiful. Yeah.
The kingdom of God is within you, and you were created in God's image. Yeshua said, you can do everything I can do and more, meaning that's a lot if you follow some of those teachings, and each and every single one of us has that capability inside of us. And I think what you talked about, is this the genocide or what is going on? I think it's a big FU to God and saying, look, I can take your creation away from their natural self and create this transhumanized version of a digital. And I think the big part of us is the manifestation abilities that we do have. And I think that that's why this whole voting thing is, as much as it's more selected than elected, it's the will of the people. And if the will of the people are still putting their energy towards manifesting these certain outcomes, opposed to creating things on themselves away from any masters or rulers, they keep people sucking them into and manifesting. And I think that the whole thing is like, look, I can change your world, I can change your people, I can do this, and back to the good against evil battle. And I think that's why this digital transhuman convergence is taking away people from their natural state. And we have Zadie Mom from our Rumble says the blurred understanding of right left converged ideology, law, social policies is communitarian. Has Elana heard of this political framework, communitarianism?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I've heard of it. I have friends who want me to know more about it. And I don't know, I don't even know enough to comment on it, but I am very familiar with the term.
So, an easy way to put it is the needs of the many outweigh your individual sovereign right. So, basically, you don't have your God given rights, because if the needs of the many need you to go get an injection in, well, guess what? You don't have no my body, my choice. You don't have no sovereign right because the needs of the many outweigh your individual sovereign right. And I think that's kind of like a simplified example of what communitarianism means. And a lot of people are attacking everybody. Oh, that's communitarian. They're communitarian. They want people to come together. That's communitarianism. And it's another cop out, right? Because they use the things that can help us and they corrupt it. And then, because we do have to come, we're all one source, we're all one being. But if you say that that's communitarianism and you're part of the agenda, it's like, it's really crazy. It's almost like a no-win battle in this thing, because anytime something is good or helpful to us, you're going to have people that attack it and have
Yeah,
it's no good for anybody. So really, there's some people that have a doom and gloom type of being, and they don't think that there's any way to find light at the end of this tunnel.
yeah, okay, got it.
So, is there anything that we didn't talk about here today that maybe you wanted to share before we start to wrap this up? It's been over 2 hours and two
Oh,
hours and 18 2 hours and 18 minutes. So I
uh,
love being able to chat with you, and I'd love to have you on more frequent, because I think that you're, very good for the people that, our audience really resonate with you. And we got a lot of people here with us live right now.
yeah. No, I need to go. That's too much because it was a revelation to me that I get tired after doing these radio shows. I pour a lot into it, and I guess that's why I get tired. But I remember when I was younger, I didn't get tired. You know how it goes. But let me tell people where to get the books, just to, if they're interested. Um, okay, so all my books, including, and we haven't talked about it, but I wrote a series called, I think maybe the last radio show we talked about it, called Sub Rosa America, A Deep State History. It's 4 books and 1,300 pages of the story of a 60s group who are in 1970. They take a trip from Santa Barbara to Dallas to see where Kennedy was shot. And during that trip, all sorts of weirdness happens, so that you end up really looking at the deep underbelly of the deep state in America through those events that they undergo. And when they start out, they're all very excited about living their personal lives. And when they arrive, they realize they have to live for more. So anyway, that's all my books are at the Rudolph Steiner bookstore in Seattle, Washington. And it's a little teeny weeny bookstore at the back of his backyard. But he's been wonderful to me to handle all my books. And all three of the geoengineering books are there. And I don't know if the fourth one will be, because that has a publisher that owns it. So I think that's all. And then I said that I actually comment on articles that I post on two sites. One is a Facebook site, probably the last one I'll ever do, EMF Planetary Engineering, and then the other one is a Patreon site, which is basically Patreon Elana Freeland, I think. But people are welcome, and you don't have to pay on the Patreon. Some people are paying $10, very nice, but it's also free.
And what can people find on your website, elanafreeland.com?
That is an historical site, because it was made by my web mistress at that time, and we have gone separate ways now. But I keep it and I pay for it in order so people can see her amazing work, and so they can also get a sense of how far I've come in various places, and I think it's well worth keeping. So I'm keeping it another year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everything that you've done so far to enlighten anybody willing to listen. We really appreciate you coming here on the Missing Link Live and sharing some of these topics with us. Our audience is well versed in many of these different things, because we've been trying to enlighten people as much as we can. And I really enjoyed our first interview, and it's great having you come back here on our show again. So thanks for taking almost 2 hours, 2 hours and 22 minutes and 22 seconds. I see.
Two.
all,
Wow.
all twos was right across the board.
So
Um,
thank you for the work you do, because I realize it's a lot of work to do these radio shows, and I really appreciate your doing it. Gosh, it's changed us. It's changed our country so much that now we can't go to the mainstream media. I mean, I haven't gone to the mainstream media for like 50 years, but you know what I mean.
100%. Well, you're very welcome. I just feel guided that we need to be doing this at this time. Have
Yeah.
no idea what I'm doing. Just know that we're booked about 3 months to get on our show in advance. It's kind of crazy how this all just kind of transpired, and we're just doing the best that we can. Our goal was to get to 1,000 shows. We're at 929. So we're getting close, and then we're gonna see if however, we're not sure where we're going to go from there, but obviously this is a good thing, because we keep growing and reaching more people every single day. And we're very shadow banned. Like I said, we've lost our 13-year Facebook account in 2020, deleted, and then we've lost 6 YouTube channels. We just recently lost our LinkedIn, because we were putting our interviews on LinkedIn. We keep getting, canceled or deleted, but our Rumble is growing. We're over 11,000 on Rumble now, and that's become our bigger platform. We got almost 20,000 on Facebook, and then another 9,000 on my profile. But we've got hit hard on the shadow ban from being in Canada, and because I'm a journalist, or they think I'm a journalist, or whatever it is, that they think that they can restrict my content,
Yeah.
because they don't want Canadians to be subject to anything that's not approved by the Canadian government, as crazy as that sounds, in something that's supposed to be free. But we just keep persevering, moving forward, and we're just going to keep doing this as long as the will is there to keep doing it. And we have amazing people in our audience. We like to ask their questions and bring their comments up, and we kind of make it a little bit interactive, so it's a little bit different, because we have a whole wide variety of guests, and people get to ask them questions and stuff. So I try to get as much questions in. And if I didn't get to your question, sorry. I tried to do the best to get all the questions possible. But thanks again, and hopefully you're be willing to come back in the near future.
Oh, sure, sure. Oh, thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye, Lana. So knowledge is power. The more knowledge we all have collectively, the less power they have over us. For one love, one heart, one life. Namaste, everyone. And if they ever ask you to put on a breathing inhibitor again, Alana, you know what to say. No mask, eh? Okay, bye, everyone. We'll see you next time. Oh, and we've got our stream tomorrow. Is Dean Schwenk. Tomorrow, he's a fascinating guy. Talks interesting, but you'll see tomorrow. Haven't advertised it yet, but I'll get on that right as soon as we're done. But bye, Alana. Bye, everyone. We'll see you next time we see you back here on the Missing Link.